One of the most painful mistakes we make in life is assuming that familiarity means loyalty. Someone talks to you every day, laughs with you, knows your stories, sits beside you, answers your messages, and suddenly you begin to believe that this person is truly on your side. But psychological closeness and genuine loyalty are not the same thing. A person can know you extremely well and still have very little commitment to your well-being. This is where many people become emotionally vulnerable. They judge relationships by how they feel rather than by what those relationships reveal. If someone makes you feel understood, you assume they understand you. If someone spends time with you, you assume they value you. If someone calls you a friend, you assume friendship has already been proven, but words are cheap, familiarity is easy. Loyalty is expensive. Think about how most friendships begin. You meet someone because you share an environment, a workplace, a school, a neighborhood, an interest, or a social circle. You discover similarities, you talk, you laugh, you exchange personal stories. The brain naturally creates a sense of connection. Repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates comfort. Eventually, you stop questioning the relationship because it has become part of your psychological landscape. But ask yourself a more uncomfortable question. What exactly has this person sacrificed for you? Not every friendship requires dramatic sacrifice. That is not the point. The point is that loyalty becomes visible when there is a cost attached to it. Anyone can be supportive when supporting you requires nothing. Anyone can congratulate you when your success does not threaten their position. Anyone can say, "I'm happy for you," when your achievements do not force them to confront their own insecurities. The real test begins when your interests separate. Suppose you begin improving your life, you become more disciplined. You stop drinking as much, you stop wasting time, you begin working toward a serious goal, you become less available because you are building something. Suddenly the friend who loved having you around every night starts making jokes about your ambition. They tell you that you've changed. They accuse you of becoming arrogant. They encourage you to relax, but notice something beneath the words. They may not actually be asking you to relax. They may be asking you to return to the version of yourself that made them comfortable. This is a crucial psychological principle. People often become attached not only to you, but to the role you play in their emotional world. Maybe you are the person who always listens. Maybe you are the person who always pays. Maybe you are the person who solves problems. Maybe you are the person they compare themselves against so they can feel superior. Maybe you are simply the person who never says no. When you change your behavior, you change the relationship. And when the relationship changes, you discover what was actually holding it together. This does not mean everyone around you is secretly malicious. That would be another form of psychological weakness. Cynicism is not intelligence. Paranoia is not awareness. The mature person does not assume everyone has bad intentions. Instead, they understand that human beings are complicated. People can genuinely care about you while also being selfish. They can love you and envy you at the same time. They can want the best for you and still feel threatened by your progress. That contradiction is part of human nature. The mistake is expecting people to operate according to the ideal version of friendship you have constructed in your mind. You may think, if I were in their position, I would support them, so they should support me. But you are making a dangerous assumption. You are expecting another person to possess your psychology. They don't. Their fears are different. Their ambitions are different. Their wounds are different. Their insecurities are different. Their definition of loyalty is different. And when you fail to recognize this, you create resentment. You give someone more than they have demonstrated they can handle, then become angry when they fail to return it. You reveal your deepest secrets, then feel betrayed when the person proves careless with them. You repeatedly sacrifice your time, then feel offended when they do not sacrifice theirs. You make someone the center of your emotional world, then wonder why they do not treat you as the center of theirs. The solution is not to stop caring. The solution is to stop assuming. There is enormous freedom in that distinction. Care about people, but observe them. Enjoy companionship, but do not confuse companionship with commitment. Trust people, but allow trust to develop through evidence. Give affection, but do not turn affection into a contract that demands repayment. Most importantly, stop asking people to prove their loyalty through words. Watch what happens when you say no. Watch how they react when you establish a boundary. Watch whether they respect your absence. Watch whether they celebrate your success without turning it into a competition. Watch whether they remain present when you have nothing to offer. Watch whether they protect your reputation when you are not in the room. These moments tell you far more than emotional conversations ever will, because loyalty is not primarily a statement. It is a pattern of behavior, and there is another uncomfortable truth. Sometimes we become disappointed in others because we have never been honest about what we wanted from them. We call someone a friend when what we really wanted was an ally. We call someone a friend when we wanted constant emotional support. We call someone a friend when we wanted validation, attention, protection, or opportunity. Then when they fail to provide those things, we conclude that friendship itself is fake. But perhaps the problem was not friendship. Perhaps the problem was expectation. You cannot control how deeply another person cares. You cannot force someone to possess your values. You cannot negotiate genuine loyalty into existence. What you can control is access. That is one of the most important forms of personal power. Not everyone deserves the same version of you. There should be levels of trust. There should be things you share with acquaintances, things you share with friends, and things you reserve only for the rare people who have demonstrated extraordinary discretion and consistency. This is not manipulation, it is emotional intelligence. A person who gives everyone unrestricted access to their private thoughts eventually becomes vulnerable to people who have not earned that access. The wiser person allows time to reveal character. Time is one of the greatest filters in human relationships. People can pretend for a day, they can pretend for a month, some can even pretend for years, but maintaining a false character becomes increasingly difficult when circumstances change. Success exposes envy, failure exposes compassion, boundaries expose entitlement, distance exposes attachment, conflict exposes maturity, and your independence exposes whether someone loved you or simply loved what you provided. So stop obsessing over who is your real friend. Instead, become the kind of person who does not need to force that answer. Observe, listen, remember patterns, let people reveal themselves without interrogating them, and when someone repeatedly demonstrates that they are trustworthy, appreciate them deeply. Genuine loyalty may be rare, but rarity is precisely what makes it valuable. You do not need to become cold. You need to become precise. You do not need fewer relationships. You need fewer illusions about relationships. Because the moment you stop confusing familiarity with loyalty, you stop begging people to give you what they have never demonstrated they possess. And once you begin observing people instead of simply believing what they tell you, another uncomfortable truth becomes visible. People often reveal their real nature when your interests stop being perfectly aligned. This is where many friendships begin to change. When two people want the same things, there is harmony. When they benefit from the same relationship, there is cooperation. When neither person feels threatened, there is often warmth. But introduce competition, boundaries, success, disagreement, or changing priorities, and suddenly the emotional structure of the relationship is tested. You begin to discover that what you interpreted as loyalty may have been convenience. This is not necessarily because people are evil. It is because human beings naturally protect their interests, their identity, their status, and their sense of security. We like to imagine ourselves as completely selfless, but much of human behavior is influenced by what we believe we stand to gain or lose. The mistake is not recognizing this reality. The mistake is becoming emotionally offended by it. Imagine that you and a friend have always been moving in the same direction. You have similar ambitions. You earn roughly the same amount. You share the same social circle. Neither of you feels inferior to the other. The relationship feels effortless. Then something changes. You begin succeeding. You receive an opportunity they wanted. Your career advances. People begin respecting you more. You become more confident. Perhaps you become financially independent while they remain stuck. Nothing about your success was intended to hurt them, but suddenly their behavior changes. They make subtle jokes. They minimize your accomplishments. They remind you of your failures. They become strangely silent when something good happens. Or they congratulate you with a smile that contains something you cannot quite explain. This is where you must learn to observe rather than accuse. Envy rarely announces itself directly. People almost never say, "Your success makes me uncomfortable." Instead, it appears indirectly through sarcasm, criticism, withdrawal, competition, or unnecessary comparisons. And sometimes the person does not even understand that they are doing it. This is why psychological awareness matters. You are not simply dealing with someone's conscious decisions. You are dealing with their insecurities, their self-image, their fears, and their unconscious comparisons. Your success can force another person to confront their own lack of progress. That can be uncomfortable. And when people feel uncomfortable, they often attempt to reduce the source of that discomfort. Sometimes that source is you. But there is another side to this principle. You must also examine yourself. When your friend succeeds, what happens inside you? Do you genuinely celebrate, or do you immediately compare yourself? Do you wonder why they got the opportunity instead of you? Do you secretly hope their success does not last? Do you feel relieved when they fail? These questions are difficult because they expose something most people do not want to admit. Loyalty is not merely about what others do to us. It is also about how honestly we understand our own motives. If you want authentic relationships, you must become capable of recognizing your own envy as well. Because otherwise, you will spend your life identifying betrayal in everyone except yourself. Now consider another test of friendship: boundaries. A person who benefits from your inability to say no will often call you a good friend. The moment you begin setting boundaries, they may call you selfish. This is extremely revealing. Perhaps you used to answer every phone call. Now you don't. Perhaps you used to lend money whenever someone asked. Now you refuse. Perhaps you used to tolerate disrespect because you feared losing the relationship. Now you walk away. Suddenly someone says, "You've changed." Of course you have changed. Growth is change. But sometimes what they really mean is, "Your new behavior no longer benefits me." This is why boundaries are such powerful diagnostic tools. They expose relationships that were built around access rather than affection. A genuine friend may disagree with your boundary, but they will eventually respect it. An entitled person will attempt to punish you for having one. They may use guilt. They may withdraw affection. They may recruit other people against you. They may remind you of everything they have done for you. And now you see the hidden contract that existed beneath the relationship. You thought you were giving freely. They thought you owed them. That distinction can change everything. Another test comes when your path separates from theirs. People often become friends because they share a particular stage of life, but life is not static. You change careers. You move cities, you develop different values, you become more disciplined, you become interested in different things. And suddenly, the friendship requires effort. Some relationships survive because both people are willing to adapt. Others disappear because the original environment was the only thing holding them together. This is not always betrayal. Sometimes it is simply evolution. You must learn the difference. Not every person who leaves your life is an enemy. Not every friendship that ends was fake. Some relationships are meant to exist for a particular chapter. Their value does not become meaningless simply because they do not continue forever. This is another expectation that creates unnecessary suffering. The belief that if someone was once loyal, they must remain loyal indefinitely. Human beings change, circumstances change, priorities change. Sometimes loyalty has an expiration point because the relationship itself has transformed. The wise person accepts this without turning every ending into a war. But there is something else you should watch carefully: how people behave when you no longer need them. Dependency creates a strange illusion of loyalty. If someone is always helping you, you may believe they care deeply about you. But what happens when you become independent? If you no longer need their advice, money, connections, protection, or approval, does the relationship remain? This is a powerful test. Some people enjoy being needed more than they enjoy being your friend. They want influence. They want importance. They want to feel superior. When you become capable of standing alone, their interest may disappear. That tells you something. Your independence is not merely a personal achievement. It is also a social filter. The more self-sufficient you become, the easier it becomes to see who genuinely enjoys your company and who was attached to what you provided. And this is why you should never become bitter when people reveal themselves. Be grateful for the information. That is a different psychological posture. Instead of saying, "How could they do this to me?" ask, "What has this behavior taught me about the relationship?" One question produces resentment. The other produces wisdom. You cannot control people's motives. You cannot force them to be loyal. You cannot make someone celebrate your success. You cannot make someone respect your boundaries. You cannot make someone remain beside you when your lives move in different directions. But you can observe, and observation gives you power. You begin to stop chasing explanations. You stop arguing with people's behavior. You stop trying to convince someone to value you. If a person repeatedly shows you that your success threatens them, believe the pattern. If they repeatedly disrespect your boundaries, believe the pattern. If they disappear whenever you stop providing something, believe the pattern. If they remain beside you when there is nothing to gain, pay attention to that pattern too. The goal is not to become suspicious of everyone. The goal is to become less naive. There is a profound difference. A paranoid person sees enemies everywhere. A psychologically mature person simply refuses to ignore evidence. And once you learn to think this way, disappointment loses much of its power. You no longer expect every person to behave according to your ideals. You allow them to be who they are. Then you decide how much access they deserve. That is emotional independence, because friendship should not be a prison built from expectations. It should be a relationship freely maintained by two people who continue to choose each other despite having the freedom to walk away. So stop asking people to promise that they will never betray you. Watch what they do when betrayal becomes convenient. Watch what they do when your success creates comparison. Watch what they do when you say no. Watch what they do when you no longer need them. Because pressure does not create character, pressure reveals it. And when people reveal themselves, do not waste your energy trying to change what you have finally learned to see. And once you have learned to observe people without illusions, you arrive at the final lesson. The strongest position is not to expect everyone to be loyal to you. It is to become so internally secure that you can appreciate loyalty without depending on it. This is where many people misunderstand emotional strength. They think strength means becoming cold. They stop trusting anyone. They isolate themselves. They assume everyone is waiting to betray them. But that is not strength. That is fear wearing the mask of intelligence. Real strength is different. Real strength means you can trust someone without becoming dependent on them. You can love someone without making them responsible for your happiness. You can enjoy friendship without demanding that friendship last forever. You can be disappointed without allowing disappointment to destroy your identity. The moment you stop expecting other people to complete you, your relationships begin to change. Think about what happens when you desperately need someone to stay. You become afraid of disagreement. You tolerate behavior you should reject. You overlook disrespect. You explain yourself too much. You become available whenever they want you. You begin negotiating against your own dignity because the possibility of losing the relationship feels unbearable. And the strange irony is that desperation often damages the very relationship you are trying to protect. People can sense dependency. They may not consciously analyze it, but they feel it. They notice when your mood depends entirely on their attention. They notice when you are terrified of saying no. They notice when you tolerate anything because you fear abandonment. And once someone knows you are afraid to lose them, they possess a certain psychological leverage over you. This is why emotional independence is so important. It does not mean you stop needing people in a healthy human sense. We are social creatures. We need connection, companionship, affection, cooperation, and belonging. The fantasy of complete independence is just another illusion. What you want is not isolation. You want choice. You want to be able to say, I value you, but I can survive without you. That sentence changes your entire psychology. Now you can disagree without panic. You can establish boundaries without guilt. You can walk away from disrespect. You can give generously without keeping a mental record of everything you have done. You can forgive without reopening the door. You can love without surrendering your judgment. And perhaps most importantly, you can stop treating every ending as a personal failure. Some people are meant to accompany you for a season. Others may remain for decades. A few may prove themselves during the moments when your life becomes difficult. The mistake is believing that every person who enters your life must remain there permanently. Look at nature. Everything changes. People change, circumstances change, ambitions change, priorities change, even your own identity changes. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago. So why would you expect everyone you knew 5 years ago to remain psychologically identical? Some relationships end because someone betrayed you. Others end because you outgrew each other. And some end simply because life moved in different directions. The mature person learns not to turn every ending into a moral drama. You can appreciate what someone gave you without demanding that they continue giving it forever. This mindset also changes the way you choose friends. Instead of asking, "Who likes me?" you begin asking better questions. Who respects my boundaries? Who can celebrate my success without making it about themselves? Who tells me the truth when the truth is uncomfortable? Who keeps confidence when there is no reward for doing so? Who remains consistent when circumstances become difficult? Who wants me to become stronger rather than more dependent? These questions lead you toward a different kind of relationship. You become selective, and selectivity is not arrogance. It is stewardship. Your time is limited. Your attention is limited. Your emotional energy is limited. your trust is limited. If you give all of these things indiscriminately, you eventually have nothing left for the people who genuinely deserve them. This is why privacy matters too. You do not need to tell everyone everything. There is a strange modern obsession with complete transparency, as though revealing every thought and emotion automatically creates intimacy. It does not. Sometimes mystery protects dignity, sometimes silence protects peace, sometimes keeping certain ambitions private gives them room to develop without outside interference. Not everyone needs access to your vulnerabilities. Trust should be earned gradually. You can be warm without being exposed. You can be kind without being completely open. You can be generous without becoming available to everyone. This distinction protects you from one of the most common mistakes in relationships, giving someone the privileges of intimacy before they have demonstrated the character required to handle them. Time is the test, consistency is the test, pressure is the test, and when someone passes those tests repeatedly, you can allow the relationship to deepen. But even then, do not surrender yourself, because one of the greatest dangers in friendship is losing your identity inside the relationship. You begin saying what they say, wanting what they want, avoiding what they dislike, choosing based on their approval. Eventually, you are no longer living according to your own values. You are managing someone else's emotional reactions. That is not friendship. That is dependence. A healthy relationship should expand your identity, not replace it. You should have your own goals, your own interests, your own principles, your own private world, your own capacity to stand alone. Then, when you return to the relationship, you are bringing something to it rather than desperately asking it to fill a void. This also changes how you respond to betrayal. Betrayal will hurt. Do not pretend otherwise. If someone you trusted deeply disappoints you, there may be anger, grief, confusion, and even shame. But betrayal does not have to become your identity. You can learn from it without becoming consumed by it. Ask yourself, what did I ignore? What did I assume? Where did I give trust before it was earned? What boundary did I fail to establish? What pattern did I refuse to see because I wanted the relationship to be different? These questions transform pain into intelligence. And that may be the most valuable lesson of all. Every disappointment contains information. Every betrayal teaches you something about human behavior. Every broken relationship can reveal something about your own expectations, but only if you are willing to look at it without ego. Do not say, "I was stupid because I trusted." Trust itself is not stupidity. Blind trust is. There is a difference between having faith in humanity and refusing to learn from experience. You should remain capable of trusting, but your trust should become more intelligent. Give people opportunities to demonstrate who they are. Do not punish everyone because one person betrayed you. Do not make one dishonest person the representative of the entire human race. That would allow one person's weakness to corrupt your character. Instead, become more discerning. The goal is not to have no enemies, no disappointments, and no broken friendships. The goal is to become the kind of person who can encounter all of these things without losing yourself. When you no longer require universal approval, you become difficult to manipulate. When you no longer fear losing everyone, you can finally walk away from the wrong people. When you no longer demand that others validate your worth, you become free to build your worth through your own actions. And that is where the entire lesson comes together. Stop expecting loyalty from people who have never demonstrated it. Stop treating every acquaintance as a confidant. Stop giving unlimited access to people who have earned limited trust. Stop chasing people who repeatedly choose distance. But also, stop becoming bitter. There are good people. There are loyal people. There are friendships that survive pressure, distance, success, failure, and time. They may be rare. That is precisely why you should value them when you find them. The answer is not to expect nothing from humanity. The answer is to expect reality, observe, choose carefully, give gradually, love deeply, but remain capable of standing alone. Because when you can stand alone, friendship becomes a choice rather than a desperate need. And that is the point at which you finally stop asking, "Who will stay?" You begin asking something far more powerful: "Who has earned the right to walk beside me?"